The 22nd FIFA World Cup is taking place in Qatar this year. It started on the 20th of November and will end on the 18th of December. Given the structure and regime that Qatar is as a country, there were great concerns about giving it the right to host the World Cup. But also, as more and more evidence and discussion has come up about Qatar as a country, many have felt that it was necessary to boycott the World Cup and not attend it. Those in favour of the Qatari World Cup suggest that arguments opposed don't consider the reality of the situation, and that given that Qatar isn't going to change overnight, we should be focused on the best way to get the best situation for the people within the country. There are two key ideas here. The first one is that by attending the World Cup in Qatar, we open up a channel for discourse. This can be seen not only through the large amount of media attention that's focused on Qatar, but also the large amount of information and awareness that people now have of a country they may not have had before. This could be coupled with a large number of discussions and conversations, not only between FIFA and Qatar, but also with all the countries who attend it and Qatar. And this can make great beneficial change and avenues for discussion moving forward. The second important thing to note here is that this argument can actually ought to be seen in practice. Many have noticed that the working conditions within Qatar have drastically improved over the last 8 years since it was awarded the right to host. Many individuals suggest that the large influx of Western people to Qatar over the course of this month will create dissemination of Western ideals across the country and further allow this change to progress in a way that is more structural and more likely to systemically last than would have been otherwise. Some people argue that granting the privilege of hosting the world's second biggest international sporting event to an illiberal country such as Qatar sends a bad message not only to that country, but also to the rest of the world. People have argued that it appears that countries such as those in Europe or the rest of the world that are attending the World Cup are turning a blind eye to things that take place in Qatar, such as the illegality of homosexuality or the rights of women. Many individuals feel that boycotting it would show the world that we're not okay with those things and that we don't support them and don't allow them. The second argument against Qatar hosting revolves around the elements of corruption. There have been allegations that Qatar used money to purchase the World Cup from the FIFA board, but additionally that a large amount of money that it's spending on the World Cup is being taken away from other public services that the people of the country need more. The third argument against Qatar hosting the World Cup, and this largely revolves around why, as we have gone through the World Cup, we should have decided to boycott it, is based on the infrastructure and workers' conditions. Given that Qatar didn't have a history of football, all the stadiums needed to be built from scratch, which required a large influx of migrants, including those from India, Bangladesh and Nepal. These individuals were kept in horrid conditions, and many of them actually died over the course of the construction of the project. Many individuals said that this alone was a reason to boycott the World Cup, to stand up against Qatar and the treatment of people. There are two further ideas that are important to think about in relation to the Qatar World Cup. The first one is whether or not we can separate sports from politics. This has been a long-standing debate in relation to a whole lot of sports and has created a lot of controversy. On one hand, people argue that sports players have the right to play their sport, irrespective of the particular political controversies surrounding it. But on the other side, people argue that sport can actually be used to change the world and change views, and therefore it's impossible to separate the two. The second important thing to think about is whether or not if we really want to change Qatar on the ground, we're better using a carrot or a stick policy. On the one hand, a carrot would encourage Qatar that through hosting the World Cup, they're able to actually change their policies and change their situations through discourse and through discussion. But on the other side, it could be suggested that allowing them to host lets them get away with it. And by restricting these privileges, we're actually more likely to pressure them into a situation where they want to change in order to be treated like the rest of the world. This can be quite a hard balance to find, and one we need to consider, not only in relation to Qatar, but also in relation to lots of other countries and all sporting events moving forward.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.